Okay, so public speaking. This is going to be based upon part one of our textbook, which is chapters 1 through 5. This video will be covering 1 and 2, and then 3, 4, 5 will be in another one. So, public speaking, getting started, how to be a good public speaker. So there are 4 speeches in this semester. So there's going to be the self-introductory speech, which is the any old bag speech. There's the informative speech. There's the persuasive speech. And there's going to be the special occasion speech. So the self-introductory speech is going to be a little bit about, who you are as a person and what's important to you. The informative speech is going to be you informing the class through a speech about something. The persuasive speech is going to be trying to persuade someone, the audience, of something, and the special occasion speech is going to be a short speech that is kind of like a toast, a eulogy, things like that. So the speech communication process. I'm just going to let it all go so I can just explain it to you first. Oh, great. So for the speech communication process, we have the sender and we have the receiver. The sender sends speech to the receiver through their feedback channel. So that could be, words or body language. They send this within the frame of reference, which is like the square. The frame of reference is, your bias or your experiences, who you are as a person. It's going to be different from person to person because it bases upon your experiences as a person. Your frame of reference will be different. So through that frame of reference, the receiver will receive the message and try to encode that message. So they're trying to pick it apart and understand what is going on. They will send back a message and through speech, body language, and then the sender is going to decode that feedback. So it's kind of like a little channel of back and forth of trying to encode and decode and try to be on the same page. And then we have these 3 big things of interference. Interference can be anything external, like a fire alarm going off, or someone else talking in another room, or it can be internal, like you're busy thinking about something else, that it's just something that gets in the way of you encoding that message. Yeah. So for our frame of reference, the things that make us individuals here is going to be our knowledge, experience, goals, values, attitudes. All in all, it's what makes us a unique individual. So for me, my frame of reference, I have a master's of science, so my knowledge is going to be different than a lot of people. But being younger, I have a lot less experience of living than other people, different goals, values, and attitudes. I'm sure we all are different. And so we are going to send messages in a different way and receive them in a different way because of our frame of reference. So it is important to note that, as a unique individual, that you experience stuff differently than other people, and other people experience stuff differently from you. So, sending and receiving messages can sometimes get a little bit mixed up because of our differences of frame of reference. So, a conversation versus public speaking. In a conversation, you'd use casual language, just first names, or just call someone hey you, and they'll use slang, jargon, profanity, so cuss words, or things like, what's a good slang word? Try not to be too Gen Z. We can be, say, clocked. That is a slang term right now that you would use in, conversation. But in public speaking, we want to be a lot more formal. We want to be a lot more structured. And we're trying to avoid using slang and jargon and obviously profanity. Being more formal would entail, using full names, saying, not any sort of slang, and kind of like you're going for like an interview or something where you're trying to use the best words that you can to seem, a certain way. If you want to seem smarter or more well-versed, then you would use more formal language. I also want to go back. So I'm pretty sure this will be talked about in later, but why we don't use slang in public speaking. You can, of course, if it is appropriate to, but when you look at your audience, if your audience is a lot of different ages, then it would be good to avoid slang, because if you say, I clocked that, someone who is probably Gen X or baby boomer is not going to understand what that means. They're probably going to think like punching. I think punching used to mean like, clocked them. I clocked them upside the head, something like that. So that will get mixed up. Did want to put that note in there. So physical mannerisms and verbal habits are going to differ between conversation and public speaking. In conversation, you can use your hands a lot. I know I use my hands a lot. Use a lot of ums like I just did. You could be, I'm sitting back in this chair. If, you're sitting doing a conversation, you'd probably be sitting back or like leaning forward. Just seeming a lot more informal. For public speaking, you're going to want to keep your physical mannerisms to a minimum. You're going to want to not be using your hands so much. Obviously, you can use it for a, like some sort of emphasis, but you're not going to be using it a lot. And then for verbal habits, you're going to want to cut out the ums and ahs and any sort of, if you're the type of person that says like a lot, I know I do sometimes, you're going to want to keep that to a minimum to not be distracting to your audience. So, effective versus ineffective. You can do this on your own, of course. Obviously, we're not in person, so I can't watch you do this, but if you would like to do this reflection exercise, on a scrap piece of paper, you can list 5 characteristics of effective speakers and ineffective speakers. And you can pause this video and I will think of some that I can tell you. So for 5 characteristics of effective speakers, it's going to be, the 5 that I can think of is going to be well practiced, standing tall, confident, projected voice, and keeping physical mannerisms to a minimum. 5 characteristics of an ineffective speaker would be reading off their notes. It would be saying a lot, not making eye contact with the audience, slouching, dressed poorly. There we go. I'm sure yours will differ from mine if you did it. If not, there's some examples. So, reducing anxiety. This is going to be chapter 3. We're kind of skipping around here. So chapter 3 of part 1, managing speech anxiety. So to reduce anxiety, you're gonna need experience. It's like running. If any of you guys run, it really sucks. I hate running. I Used to do it a lot. I need to get back into doing it. But the only way to get better at running is to run, unfortunately. So the only way to get better at doing public speaking is to do more public speaking, which sucks, but it's one of those things where it's kind of like, what is it called? What is it called? Exposure therapy. There we go. It is exposure therapy. You will have to keep doing it and try to get over that anxiety by doing it over and over and over again. Another way to reduce anxiety is to prepare. So you prepare your speech outline ahead of time, you practice multiple times ahead of time, and you dress nicely to feel confident. So you prepare as much as possible to feel less anxious. And then just know with public speaking, if you are nervous, that nervousness is probably not going to be visible to the audience most of the time, unless you are literally like wringing your hands and shaking in your boots. You won't be able to tell. Don't expect perfection. If you give yourself like you have to be perfect and you don't reach that, that's just gonna make you more anxious for later times of public speaking. So you're going to want to give yourself a high standard, but know that you will never be perfect. You will have perfect speeches, but you will never be perfect, and that is completely okay. Obviously, I'm not perfect. While doing lectures, I do a lot of pausing, a lot of thinking, a lot of ums. No one expects perfection out of you, just we expect your best. And then be positive. If you are negative, you're going to get yourself into that downward spiral of feeling negative all the time. So feel positive, say, I got this and I will be okay. And then lastly, visualize. When you're really nervous and you're about to go in front of a group of people, like, close your eyes and you're going to imagine what it's like to be in a room of a bunch of people and give a speech. When you imagine that room, what is the worst thing that is happening? The worst thing that is happening is that people are looking at you. At least for me, that's the worst. And nothing bad will happen because of that. So don't feel anxious about people looking at you. They want to give you your attention because you are worth it and you deserve it. All right? So to reduce anxiety, we're going to get more experience. We're going to prepare. We are going to not expect perfection from ourselves. Be positive and know that we deserve to have the space to speak in front of people. So, preparing for your first speech. We have our first speech in a couple of weeks. To me, so exciting. To some of you, might be a little nerve-wracking. It's going to be great. You'll be fine. So, the topic. You're going to want to select a topic you already know something about. This goes for all of your speeches. If you're doing the informative speech where you're trying to inform your audience of the topic, you are definitely not going to want to choose something you know nothing about. You're going to want to choose something that you are fairly comfortable with. You might want to do something that you know some of and you would like to know more of, so you can do that research. But I would choose something that you already know, so you will already be confident. Whether that's video games, books, knitting, coffee making, hiking, like something that you like to do, or something that you like football or dance or music, something that you like. If you were going to do a speech on something that you don't like, you are not going to like doing the speech. So pick something that you already know something about, even if it is just basic knowledge, that's fine. And then do something that you know that you'll like talking about. So the general purpose for speeches, you have 4 different ones. So it's to inform, informative speech, to persuade, or persuasive speech, to entertain, and to inspire. So these are the 4 reasons why you would be giving a speech. It is the general purpose. When you are creating a speech, you want to think of your general purpose. Why am I giving a speech on what do I got here? Why the color orange is awesome. Okay, I want to give a speech on why the color orange is awesome to persuade other people why the color orange is awesome. That's not my personal opinion. I think orange is just, it's pretty good. It's just okay. Well, might be more than okay. I don't know my opinion on orange. But yeah, you're going to want to ask yourself what your purpose for this speech is. So the specific purpose, the last one was our general purpose. This is now our specific purpose. So what will you accomplish as a result of your speech? So this is kind of like your goal. So the last one, the general purpose, so let's stick with orange. I want to persuade people that orange is the best color. My personal favorite color is pink, but we'll stick with orange. So my specific purpose for this, my goal, is that half of the classroom will think that color orange is pretty good. I'm not expecting people to think it's the best, but if I gave a speech on why it's the best, I think I would raise half the class's love for orange. So yeah, that would be the specific goal. This is your end to the means. So you are giving the speech because you want this goal to happen. So to back up, general purpose is why you are giving the speech. To inform, to persuade, to entertain, to inspire. The specific purpose is what you want to get out of doing the speech. What is your goal of doing the speech? Yeah. By the way, this says crunch. I just need to show so you guys aren't like, what is that mug? It's just a random picture of a cat. Don't worry about it. So, when you write down your specific purpose, which will be on your outline, you're going to want a full sentence, not a fragment. So, an example of an ineffective specific purpose is calendars. That doesn't give us much information. So, a better way to do that is to inform my audience about the 4 major kinds of calendars used in the world today. So that is our goal. I want to inform my audience about the 4 major kinds of calendars used in the world today. Ineffective. Buying a notebook computer. No idea what a notebook computer is. Also, this is ineffective because it's not telling us. More effective. To inform my audience of the major factors to consider when buying a notebook computer. So, our general purpose for both of these is to inform. Our goal is to inform the audience of X, Y, Z. Avoid figurative language. So, ineffective version of a specific purpose is to persuade my audience that the university's plan to reduce the number of campus parking spaces assigned to students is a real bummer. That is true for my last school, Radford. It is a bummer too. But instead of saying it's a real bummer because we're avoiding figurative language, we're going to want to say, to persuade my audience to petition against the university's plan to reduce the number of campus parking spaces assigned to students. So we're actually having a goal. We're not just saying that it's a bummer. We're having, an actual formal way to say that we don't like that and we want to do something about it. If that makes sense. And then you're going to want to make sure the specific purpose is not too vague. So an example of that is to inform my audience about the Civil War. Well, the Civil War is a lot of information, so what about the Civil War? Well, more effective way to say that is to inform my audience about the role of African American soldiers in the Civil War. There we go. Another ineffective way to say it is to persuade my audience that something needs to be done about the federal budget deficit. Something needs to be done? What needs to be done? Well, to persuade my audience that a national sales tax should be instituted to help reduce the federal budget deficit. So we're being more specific. You can say, I want to inform, my specific purpose is to inform my audience that the color orange is great. Well, that's too vague. And kind of figurative language, kind of. So a more effective way to say it would be to inform my audience about the, what is that? The serotonin inducing qualities of the color orange and why you should integrate more orange into your life. There we go. That's pretty good on the spot. That was on the spot. It's pretty good. All right. So that was more specific of why I want to inform my audience about the color orange, what I want to get out of it, what my goal is. And then we are not going to use question marks in our specific purpose. It's not a question, it's a statement. So what is a quinceañera? No. You're not answering a question. You're having a statement. So to inform my audience about the origin, ceremonies, and importance for young women of the traditional quinceañera celebration in Mexico. There we go. That's what we want to inform our audience of. And I'm sure you can read the rest of that. You're also going to want a thesis statement. So far, we have done, it's like a triangle. I don't have a thing for you guys. I didn't think of doing it beforehand. But it's like a triangle. And of course my pen is like dying here. Okay? So it's a inverted triangle. Like this. So the most broad is our general purpose. The medium amount of broad is our specific purpose. And our most specific is going to be our thesis statement. So that's going to be general purpose, specific purpose, thesis statement, like that. So the general purpose, so let's say with the color orange, we'll go with to inform. To inform. Specific purpose, to inform the class or to inform the audience of the serotonin inducing qualities of the color orange. The thesis statement is going to be a one-sentence statement that sums up the major ideas of the speech. We also call it a central idea. So this one is going to be the serotonin inducing qualities of the color orange. How to, or why you should put more orange into your life, how to put more orange into your life. So that would be our thesis statement. Usually people put in three things that sums up the major idea of the speech because you'll have 3 body paragraphs. I would do that as well. So this is going to be, what is in your speech? What is your 3 main topics to support the specific purpose of your speech? And then the residual message. What do you want the audience to take away from your speech when they have forgotten everything else? Because even though you are important and your speech is very important, the audience will forget. The audience will listen and they'll take away a couple things, but the majority of it they're going to forget. So what do you want them to take away when they do forget? If I did the color orange, I'd want them to say, maybe I should put more orange into my life. That would be mine. That would be my residual message, is that I want them to put more of the color orange into their life. So yeah, that is our first lesson. If you have any questions, please email me as soon as you can, as soon as you want to, and please also watch the next one as well for this week. All right.